much for tuning in to today's episode of Inside Austin's Agenda. I'm your host, Grace Reader, and today I'm joined by Mayor Pro Tem Vanessa Fuentes. A really busy week for you last week. Thank you so much for joining us here today, though, to break it all down.
Thank you for having me.
So first and foremost, walk people through, you all had a very intense budget process that ended last week. Talk about where you all sort of finally landed with the budget.
Yes, so we put forth a budget that's really rooted in our values as a city. We're making historic investments in parks and addressing homelessness and expanding emergency response. I mean, just really critical investments. And it's a 5-cent proposal, a nickel, and that'll be coming to voters come this November.
Talk about, so just for the budget, talk about some of the things that you saw in there that you really wanted to make sure got into that budget.
Yeah, I mean, for me, truly, just as I shared earlier, it was about making investments where it mattered the most. And for Austinites, we care about our parks, and we want to ensure that we're moving our unhoused neighbors into housing. Those services are key, and there's significant investment in those. But for me, as I think about our budget, I'm looking at, how are we investing in a way that we are helping those with the greatest needs. And one of the programs is the Family Stabilization Grant. This is a key program that has helped hundreds of families avoid eviction and prevent homelessness. And that is part of our Proposition Q and will be significant for our families. Also, Trauma Recovery Center, it's the first in the entire state that also has a permanent line item allocation. It's been previously funded through one-time dollars, and that is a key service for crime survivors and for victims who need services to heal and for rehabilitation.
It seems like homelessness was certainly something that almost everybody on the dais unanimously wanted to make sure got funded. Can you talk about the Homeless Strategy Office's plan and specifically within homelessness, sort of what you all are going to be funding in this budget?
Yes, that was a big focal point of the budget. I chair our Public Health Committee, so I was really pleased to see my colleagues in near unanimous support in putting forth a budget proposal that has a fully funded homelessness strategy office as well as a corresponding plan. So this means more shelters, more emergency beds, more outreach workers to provide those key navigation services, more case managers, more permanent supportive housing with the supports needed. And it really is understanding, the challenge that we have as a city. We're not unique in that. Many big cities have challenges around homelessness, and so we are really investing in our response system. We don't usually see firefighters come out in big numbers, but they showed up at City Hall. That might be the safest City Hall has ever been when all those firefighters were stacked up on the stairs all the way across. And the firefighters were concerned about 4-person staffing minimums, and you all worked that money back into the budget. Can you talk about what happened there and what the result was? Yeah, I certainly heard from our firefighters loud and clear. As you mentioned, we had hundreds of firefighters out at City Hall talking about staffing, and with the budget proposal that we put forward, we had a line item allocation for Austin Fire Department, so we won't see any of those proposed changes with this budget proposal. And in fact, we're really expanding emergency response services. EMS also got some really key investments to allow us to do 24/7 mental health response, but yes, very big investments in public safety.
So now you've referenced a tax rate election and Proposition Q. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for people?
Yes, it means that in November, voters will get to decide for about $25 additional a month to invest in these key services. I often talk with people that who question, where their city property tax dollar goes, and I say, 100% of it is going towards public safety. So that is top of mind for us as municipal leaders, ensuring that we have a well-funded, robust public safety, that's fire, police, EMS, but then also those key services that we talked about earlier.
Can you back up and talk a little bit about this tax rate election? Is something that I've been covering for months. It's not something that came out of the blue, though it may have for people that weren't paying attention. But can you talk about sort of what you all started, when you all started talking about this tax rate election and the process that you all took to get to where you were at?
It started with, one, we are facing significant federal funding cuts, and that means key public health services are on the chopping block, and we've already had layoffs and we've already seen services reduce. With that in mind, coupled with the state limitations that we have on how we can fund our budget, we found ourselves in a $33 million budget deficit. This is a structural budget deficit. And so I likened it to when the manager proposed his base budget as a Band-Aid budget. It made all sorts of maneuvers in order for us to stave off feeling that effect the first year, but the outlook for year two was really bad. And knowing just how important it is to meet the moment that we're in, knowing the challenges that Austinites face, and just knowing what Austinites deserve, we wanted to put forth a budget that had expansions in affordable housing, that we had enhancements in public safety and public health, that we were able to meet the community need.
So in November, folks are going to go see this on their ballot, but we obviously know that the budget goes into effect in October. You all talked a lot about what happens if this does not pass. Can you walk through that conversation?
Yeah, the stakes are high. I mean, certainly, as I shared earlier, just knowing what was first and foremost on the chopping block when the manager proposed his budget, his proposal took funds out of our rainy day fund to stave off the public health cuts. We also had proposed overtime cuts in both for our firefighters. There were staffing changes made in our police department, so we can expect more changes of that sort. But what we know is that Austinites don't want to see layoffs. Austinites want to see high quality, reliable city services, and so in order to avoid that, Austinites will get to vote on Proposition Q.
You all, is my understanding, sort of have to ride a fine line now when it comes to what you can say about this tax rate election or how you all are promoting it. Can you talk about the rules and why folks might not hear exactly what they think they might moving forward from their city council members?
Oh, that's right. So you'll note in this interview, I'm not stating a position that I have on Proposition Q. We are not allowed to talk about or advocate for or against any proposition that is before voters on city resources or city time or during city business. What I can do as someone who voted for the budget proposal to put it on the ballot is talk about why I voted that way and talk about what is in Proposition Q and what they can expect in the budget proposal. This is important here because we want Austinites to be fully informed on what they're voting on, to also know what's at stake, and to know who they can reach out to should they want more information.
We have also now already seen a lawsuit filed about the language that you all put on the ballot. Are you confident about that language being within the bounds of the law?
I am. I met with our city attorneys this morning, and through the conversations I had with them, it's very clear that our city legal team has reviewed the language, prepared that language, clear and concise. It covers what's in the proposition, so I have full confidence in the city.
We talked on the way up here about how intense this budget process was. You have done plenty of budgets before. Can you compare sort of how this budget process was to previous years?
Yeah, I mean, this is my 5th budget as part of being on city council, and the first one where we had such a significant deficit. So the conversations we were having is understanding what programs were going to be cut, what services were going to be changed, and then also talking through if we're going to go out and ask Austinites to consider a tax increase, what are those essential, necessary investments? And what we saw with a body of 11, we saw subquorums form, we saw different proposals get offered, and it was tough. I mean, it was certainly, everyone has what they view as essential services, and we all represent different parts of our city. But ultimately, we came forward voting 10-1 on the budget proposal. So we landed with a consensus and with an overwhelming sense that we know just how important it is for us to have a fully funded city budget, and that's what's going before voters.
We have seen City Manager T.C. Broadneck sort of start to look forward more when he produces these budgets for y'all, and they have come forward with some forecasts. Do you get the impression that moving forward, y'all are going to continue to have these hard budget conversations in the years to come?
Yes, absolutely. I think what we're seeing out of the state legislature, the Capitol, just up the street from City Hall, is they are very focused on what we do and really taking away local authority, making it harder for us to fund budgets and to meet the services of our city. So I do anticipate that there will be continued roadblocks ahead.
They are having a conversation right now. Even someone brought forward a 2.5% rate cap instead of what is the 3.5% rate cap right now. Can you give an idea with that 3.5% already? Obviously, it has created an issue that's being addressed right now. How detrimental would 2.5 be in that same vein?
Oh, I mean, it would be extremely detrimental. And I just want to, let's be very clear here. The state of Texas, they sit on a budget surplus. Billions of dollars of budget surplus that they have on hand where they could help support our cities in addressing mutual challenges of our shared constituents when it comes to healthcare, education, homelessness, you name it. They refuse to be helpful to cities and thus put us in a corner when it comes to funding our city budget. Just knowing right now what we pay for our public safety, our first responders, have negotiated contract. We know with police, they had a 6% 1 year, same with fire and EMS, 4%, our city workers at a 4% cost of living adjustment. 4, 5, 6, these are all above 3.5. It's going to be above 2.5. So just to pay our city workers who serve our city, who keep Austin running, puts us at that structural deficit. So it's not very helpful when they when they propose these legislation. I hope they listen. There have been many cities who have advocated against the proposal, but we'll see.
I'm sure that you also hear from the constituents who say, my property tax bill goes up every year and it's overwhelming. Can you talk to sort of the affordability with that and what you tell those folks?
Yeah, affordability is at the heart of the decisions that I make as a council member. And for me, affordability is also making sure that we have a city that people can live in, that people can access city services. And when we think about affordability, it's also ensuring that an older adult can afford the flood insurance to protect their home, that a single parent who needs to afford childcare, that they can afford childcare and not have to make a decision between that or a better paying job, that people have access to those services. And part of our budget proposal, while most of it goes towards public safety, there are key investments that address the quality of life, that provide that support network for Austinites, and those are all also part of affordability.
Well, now that you all have wrapped up with budget, what are you looking forward to for the rest of the year? What might be some priorities for you moving forward now that you finally got this done?
I know, we just voted on the budget just a few days ago, but believe it or not, we have a council meeting next week. So that is already knee deep in reviewing next week's agenda. But, just looking at, how can we ensure that the things that make Austin so special, that we keep that ethos, that we're really building on it, and that we are ensuring that Austinites love our city in a way that that everyone can enjoy and participate.
Well, even though you had that council meeting next week, I hope that you get a little bit of post-budget rest, because y'all were working very long hours trying to make that happen. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk today and have this longer conversation so folks know what was happening with the budget. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
A reminder for folks that our show is now moving to Thursdays, so you can catch us right here on KXAN Live or wherever you watch our KXAN Live shows, including Inside Austin's Agenda every other Thursday. Thanks for watching.